Today I'm going to showcase the amazing new French region pack for City Skylines 2 by trying to build an entire city with it and utilizing as much of its content as possible to develop a historic old downtown, public housing projects, big public service developments, inner city row house districts, and topping it all off with sprawling industrial areas and suburbs. Yeah, this turned out to be a massive project. So if you enjoy my content, I would very much appreciate a like on this video. It's a small thing, but it really helps out. Thank you. So we're going to play on the incredible Draconia map. We're changing the theme to European, and we'll unlock everything to get access to all the juicy new French service buildings. And then for the name, well, I'll surely butcher anything remotely French sounding, but I can somewhat pronounce the word avant-clair. So yeah, that's what we're going for. Alright, so one of the more dramatic features of this awesome map is this massive bay here, encapsulated by peninsulas and very hilly terrain. It's hilly, but it's not super mountainous, so I'm guessing we can kind of imagine we're somewhere along the Atlantic coast of France. So obviously one major limitation of trying to get as much done as possible is that we can't go heavy detailing, and we can't go into manually plopping each building. That's just not going to be feasible given the time constraints. Otherwise this is going to take 10 hours. But basically we're not going to go heavy detailing here. We're going to try and be clever with the road layout, our zoning tool sets, and some of the other vanilla assets and parks in hopes of making sure that that can make this build stand out a little bit. Anyways, we can kick off by using 3 of the new French themed service buildings right out the gate. So the first thing I kind of want to do is just add a train station to this non-connected track here, because that seems like an obvious focal point to have at the very center or close to the center of a European city. So if we move in here and we move over to trains, we have a new French themed train station. It's not big, but it's beautiful. I'm gonna align it to one of the tracks, this lower track here, and we'll just click to build it. And then I am just going to quickly be rebuilding this segment here with the complex curve tool. So if I just find, I'm just gonna pause, we find here 180, we click once, and we click once more, and then just get this connected up. Now, as we have a look at this station, it is just, oh, it's marvelous. It even has an upgrade, which makes it even more beautiful, so we're just gonna apply that instantly. Functionally, it adds 30 comfort. I never really understood how much that affects, but it's nice looking. Now, the station obviously needs a road connection, which is going to lead me into the general topic of the roads we're going to be building here in this city. So since we'll be zoning, and these French assets are all wall-to-wall, strictly 90-degree angle assets, most of them at least, we are going to try and adhere to a road grid layout. But I'm hoping that with a few tweaks, we can make it look pretty interesting still. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some main avenues here that are going to cut through much of the downtown area. I guess I'll grab this one here and maybe add another avenue just of a slightly different style. And then my idea is that the way we can try and make this grid layout a little more interesting is to just basically make the road usage a little more random than it would otherwise be. So I'm going to use some of the custom roads I've built with the road builder, and I'm just going to mix them up. So here we have this narrow single parking, 1 lane, 1-way road, quite a mouthful. So if I like bring this through, for instance, like this, and then I just add this weird little segment to it here, and maybe we just grab the alley from this area here, we align it like this and just cut through. And maybe we'll have an alley segment move through here. Then with like a few additional steps, we can make it look a little more interesting than just a completely regular street grid where each block is the same size. This also goes for if we're trying to create an intersection here of 4 roads, then if we just move one zoning tile up, we can still get the intersection going, but we will have a slightly more, unique layout to how this actually looks. Now, do keep in mind that, as you guys could see, this kind of breaks up the zoning a little bit, and we won't have a perfect, corner building on this lot here. So just keep in mind how the zoning is affected each time you try to make your road grid a little more unique. But I think in general, it's still a good idea to do, just to make it a little more interesting. Something to be careful of though is that we're getting a lot of dedicated traffic light intersections everywhere now. So we can of course kind of mitigate this by using the road tools. We can remove the traffic lights, we can remove the crossings, and then we can disallow left turns. And if we do that, we don't have an actual intersection anymore, and we're going to have smooth traffic flow move through here. And we're gonna do the very same thing here, just to avoid having too many crossings and too much to stop traffic. And I guess from a very, very low detailing perspective, this also makes everything look a little more unique. Anyways, our train station is screaming for some utility coverage, and this is where the two other French-themed service buildings that we're gonna use early on come into play. Because we actually also have some solutions here for power as well as water, which is just fantastic and was pretty unexpected to me at least. So if we move into electricity, we have this funny little bad boy, the French electrical substation. An old looking substation that can provide high voltage electricity directly to your city center without the use of power lines. All the power hidden nicely underground. Now it's a funny little rectangular building, which is going to work really well in this wall-to-wall context, because if we just place this here and take a look, you will see that, at least from the outside, it kind of passes as like a commercial establishment. But obviously it isn't, and it's gonna function really well when we have some neighboring buildings here. Anyways, what this building allows us to do is we can grab the power line here, we can lower it underground, and then we can just, in this case, drag it out to the existing power lines supplied by the map. So we're just gonna move it over here. Doesn't really matter how we do it. And then get that connection going, and we can import our electricity from our outside connections. Obviously, this is a little more expensive than producing the electricity on your own, but since we have infinite monoritos, it doesn't really matter. And then for the third quickly used French service building, we have a French water tower, and this one is just, it looks awesome. So I'd probably place this in like maybe another environment, but I'm just gonna place it here just so we can actually look at it, because it's an amazing asset. Just look at the small ornaments and the amount of detailing here. We can actually upgrade it with a filtration system. Let's just do that. Since we are blowing money, and we should just do that. So next up, to just round out our initial utility layout, we need to be able to treat the backed up sewers, or the poop water basically. I don't want to just kind of dump that into the bay, because it's going to discolorize everything and it's going to make us sick, eventually at least. So since I do have the money, I want to use the water treatment plant. Now this is not a French themed asset, it's just a vanilla one. But I think that's fine. We are going to move a bit further away from the city center. So basically, we're going to move off this central island here, just across this small river where we have this small area that's kind of nestled in between some national roads and some railroads. So I think this would be a pretty good fit for like a small industrial area, just to get us going. So I'm going to use this Suburban 2-lane road I created with Road Builder. This is basically just a normal 2-lane road, but without any road markings. So it looks more suburban in nature, basically. And I'm just going to create a very, very simple road layout here and make sure we are connected to the main highway here. And we can get this treatment plant, placed maybe around here. I think that's fine. I'll just expand the road a bit. I elevated it, so I'm gonna select it, remove it, and then say Control H just to bring it down to the level of this node here. And I think I'm gonna remove this little segment, because then maybe something that could look kind of interesting is to just have the world's smallest rail yard here. So I'll just utilize this 3-track rail yard I built with a Road Builder once more, and we'll just get that connected up here. And I think that's fine. That does actually make it look a little more interesting. Maybe if we're gonna be really cheeky, we can just squeeze in an additional track here and something like that. Now this also gives us a bit of zoning space for a bit of industry, which, I mean, I do have infinite demand, but I guess we do need a bit of industry just to get going, right? But first things first, we're gonna connect this these pipes up to the actual network of pipes we have in the city, so that it's connected to the water tower as well. And we now have filtration of all our poop water. And then last but certainly not least, the connection to the power lines. And I think we're just gonna, yeah, we're gonna be a little brutal here and just not really follow any roads or anything, because we don't really have any established just yet. Which reminds me, we should probably start bringing these national roads a little further into the actual city. So this one can, I guess this one could easily just connect to the road we're using here. We'll add a bit of curve to it, just like that. All right, so now that we have our basic utilities covered, we of course want to expand on the road layouts. But since some of these French-themed service buildings, besides being beautiful, are also quite big, I kind of want to place a few of them so that I can create the road layout more organically around them. So one thing we're gonna need is a hospital. Now we have two available assets here. We have a French-themed medical center, which is awesome. And we have an actual fully sized hospital that is also upgradable. And the easy answer is we're gonna use both, but I'm gonna start by placing the hospital because it's a very big asset. So like I said, if I place it, we can configure some of the roads to fit around it. So I think we are going to place it, we're gonna place it here with an equal distance between these two main avenues we have on either side. And it is beautiful looking right out the gate, but something that's really cool is that we can add a massive wing extension to it. Just like that. And that is something else. Now, I just got a super spontaneous idea to do something that might be even cooler and maybe a bit weird, but we'll see. So I'm just going to try and expand on this avenue for just a couple of 100 meters here. And then I might actually wanna add an additional hospital that we don't upgrade on this side. We're just gonna try this out. Actually, I need to see how. I'll just start by free placing it so that I can show you guys what I mean, and then we'll just adjust it to fit the road perfectly, because I just need to know where I need to place this additional road, and that would be here. So strictly 90 degrees, we're gonna remove this. We'll grab the hospital, enable snapping, and we'll just perfectly align it like this. And this is now a massive structure in the center of town, but I really do quite like it because it does look a little different now that we have the open park area here. Anyways, what I meant before is that now we can of course add these roads on either side, and we'll add some very slim ones with, so we'll go for this one-way lane parking that I've created with the road builder. We'll add a couple of these. And then, as we've done over here, we need that bit of randomness, right? So I'm just going to continue this, and then we'll have a small open square right here, as well as here. We're going to grab the normal one-way road, and we'll add a segment through here, and we'll just grab a, let's see, I have this Suburban version here that I can add. And then we'll just grab the regular alley, I think, and add in a little street as well. Once again, we're gonna disallow left turns here so that we can remove the traffic light and some of the crossings. And that's pretty creative, if I do say so myself. And once again, I guess my point was that if I did the road layout first, I would have to remove something to place, you know, something that would take up this much space. And I might even not have gotten the idea in the first place, because the road layout would just be kind of obstructing my plans. Anyways, more service buildings. We have 2 police stations as well. One pretty sizable regular police station and an actual police HQ, which is actually a smaller asset, but it's more dense, like it's taller basically. And of course we're gonna use both, no worries. But I think we'll make sure we place this major police station near one of the main avenues. Maybe we could just place it right here, and then this one actually has fronts facing all of its all directions here. So we're going to grab a regular road, I think, maybe a 1-lane road here. Just bring this through, and then the alleyway will bring through here, so that we can continue our symbol grid layout. And we'll add a bit of interest to this part as well. Obviously, we've got a bit of an issue here, disallowing some left turns, getting rid of this crossing, otherwise it's gonna be too chaotic. Oh my god, it even has a watermark. I mean, garage expansion, but just look how nicely this is added. It's just like a little infill building here in the courtyard. And what did that actually do? 6 additional patrol cars, which I guess is already nice. So it basically doubles the vehicle count at least. Now the police HQ is an equally nice looking asset. As I said, it's a little taller. It looks a little more dense. So I think placing it in one of these spots here would be quite fitting next to the hospital. So obviously this Umber Street, which we probably have to rename, has some pretty significant buildings going. So let's just see, maybe if we place it here, and then since this is also a building where we have windows on all sides, I kind of want to, you know, add a tiny road here just to kind of break this up a bit. Can we do that? That is a little too small maybe, so I'll just go for this version here. All right, and once again, let's just make sure we don't have like an actual intersection here to disrupt traffic, because I do expect that this will be quite a sizable downtown, and since it's going to be quite dense with all this medium density that is in this pack, we are gonna see quite a few people move in here. Moving on from policing, we should probably get some fire coverage so the whole thing doesn't burn down. And once again, we have 2 nice options. We have a rural firehouse with 3 fire engines and quite a large footprint, and then we have a more well-equipped fire station with 10 engines and plenty of upgradable options, which has a smaller footprint, which makes sense. It's to be fit within places where land is simply less readily available, as opposed to the rural one, which is probably in like smaller villages and whatnot. Of course, we are going to build both, so let's just grab the high capacity one and we'll place it somewhere alongside this high street here. I mean, it's literally called High Street. Oh, it's actually a corner building, so let's just get that relocated to this corner here. And it just, I mean, it looks, it's beautiful. We've got 2 upgrades, the emergency response annex, which adds an additional 5 engines. That's pretty cool, but that actually, you know, we might add that to a version we have at a block that is wider or more deep, so that this won't just be facing this road here. And then we have a garage expansion adding 2 fire engines, and this one we can go for because that basically just extends the like wall-to-wall segment of the fire station here. And I guess I just have to check. We also have upgrades here for the police HQ. Completely forgot about those. Extra detention cells that is added in here, taking a bit of the parking lot space. And then this is a facility expansion with 20 patrol cars. We are just gonna grab everything, make it real beefed up. And next up is the rural firehouse, and I guess I kind of want to place this somewhere where it can kind of break up some of the cityscape, because obviously this one does have a bit of landscaping as part of it. So if we just continue this street here, let's just grab this and do something like this, and we'll add in an additional street here, and then we'll place this back here. Maybe not on the corner, because we have so many beautiful corner buildings in this region pack here. So we'll just place it somewhere like this, and it's a bit of a different style, but once again a really nice looking asset. And this should have it has plenty of upgrade stuff as well. We've got a dormitory, very nice. We've got a response garage with 2 additional vehicles, very nice. We have a quick response depot, which does what? It enhances emergency readiness with extra space for quicker preparation and increased equipment storage. Yoink. And finally, an additional garage expansion, bringing the total amount of vehicles up to 9. So pretty sufficient coverage we're starting to see here, which is nice. Now, once again, we're gonna grab some of our existing roads, and we'll use those to kind of quote-unquote encapsulate some of the new buildings we've added here to continue this style of getting these service buildings placed, and then kind of utilizing how we place them to map out the rest of the road grid, just to ensure that the whole thing will look a little random and have a sort of an organic flow, even though it is very much a pretty strict grid we are working with. I'm starting to get confident that we can actually make this look just all right, even with the great road layout. But all this talk about the road layout, we need to keep expanding. But once again, I'm just going to continue placing some service buildings or other important structures. And one cool thing to note is that if we jump into administration, we even have a French-themed city hall, which is just fantastic. I really didn't expect this pack to have this many different types of buildings. And oh, one more detail, we have several signature buildings as well. We have a dedicated office building, a commercial building, 2 mixed-use buildings, as well as a residential building. So there's just so much additional stuff in this pack to play around with. Which is really, I'm pleasantly surprised. I don't expect all packs to have like this scale moving forward, but with 8 packs in total and then paid for DLCs in the future, we are real soon gonna have a game where we are flooded in assets, and that's even without the asset editor thought into this mix as well. Anyways, enough rambling, we need to place the city hall, although there's one more building I definitely need to place. Now that we are building a French city, I'd be a fool not to get the Notre Dame placed down. And maybe that is what I should place around here. Or alternatively, just move it a bit and then expand on the surface of the building. Maybe that's actually the approach. And then build like a bit of a custom parkway maybe. So I actually think, are we gonna place this here? It has to be very central, right? It has to be like in a very central spot. It could be in here as well. If I'm a little rough with the roads here and just remove a bunch of stuff, we could actually get it placed here next to the old police station. And I mean, that might just be a slightly better look. So let's just get rid of these roads here. And I think I'll just enable snapping then, and I'll snap it right here. And oh my, this is gonna be nice. If I do say so myself, at least. Let's see if we can just clean up this road layout a bit then, now that we have this massive church in place. So I do want this road to just continue in a straight line. We'll get a crossing here, and then we'll just remove this little stop, and we can work on that, and we can continue the approach to that area as well. But I'm not going to remove all of this shoreline and move the waterfront all the way up here to this avenue. I do want like an extra layer of roads. So let's just get our city hall placed somewhere between a couple of roads that we can then continue. And maybe we'll disable snapping here so that we can just make the actual lot where this is placed a little bigger. And I think if we go for something like this, that is the perfect alignment between these two roads that we are obviously going to continue then. So just getting that placed, and we'll grab our custom quote-unquote suburban style road here. And we'll just drag a straight segment here. We'll do the very same over here, and then hopefully we can get perfect zoning tiles. Actually, I should disable, let's see, I should disable snap to guidelines, and I should disable snap to existing geometry. I think that is, if we disable those two, we might have a little more luck. But you can, I guess you can kind of see here, I think there is an additional distance between these zoning tiles and these zoning tiles. So it's, you almost can't see it, but it's certainly there. Which means that I'm pretty confident that if we expand this road here, we're going to have an issue. There's no issue yet, so I may just be completely wrong. Anyway, so much for trying to sound smart. We have some wonderful upgrades to the city hall. We have a municipal court, which adds this, just look at, this is like a real chateau style. And then I guess this is symmetrical. So the urban planning office, we certainly need that. Add the other wing so that we have this real symmetrical look. That's just wonderful. And it's, I mean, it's almost perfectly aligned to the church. Oh, and if you're wondering why I have custom assets all of a sudden and different map textures, it's because the new patch that just dropped while I was recording enables me to pretty much enable all my mods while playing with this new region pack. But let's move on and get some education in place, because we have some really nice educational assets to play with this pack here. So we're just going to expand this avenue a little bit. And then I think I'll just grab a very basic 2-lane road. Let's see, we'll grab this one here. And we're just gonna move that. Are we gonna move that close to the train tracks? No, I don't think so. I think we're going to leave a bit of space and then maybe see if we can fit in some like maintenance facilities and what have you next to the train track. And then I think we're gonna move down here. We're gonna do a 90-degree turn and then just move straight through this segment here in a 90-degree manner. And then maybe I'll add in like a few additional train tracks here just to make the train station seem a little more significant due to it being pretty small. But let's get some educational facilities placed down. And we have a high school, an elementary school, and a college. And I kind of want to move to this side of the train tracks because we'll be expanding the inner city area over here. So let's just see if the high school is a good fit. And I mean, obviously it is. It's just fantastic. It's kind of reminiscent of the police HQ, although a little more modernist in its look. And let's just check the stats here. 2,500 capacity, which is quite a bit. And then we can add science labs for an extra 100 capacity. Oh, they're added up here on the roof of either of these wings. And we can add a courtyard extension with an additional 100 student capacity. And we're just gonna add everything, the whole 9 yards basically. Let's bring in an alley to kind of cross here. Let's bring in some kind of different road out front, angled parking 2-lane road. I mean, why not? I just need to find interesting. Oh, I can't snap the same way. That's because this is a custom road with the road builder, obviously. So I'll just bring this through here, and that's a nice addition. We also need an elementary school. We probably need a couple because we're now starting to really expand on what's going to be the inner city and downtown. And remember, there's going to be so much residential and mixed use here that the population is going to be quite high actually. So let's just see if we can place a elementary school. I kind of want to try and utilize one of these inner city areas here. I think that would be pretty interesting. So we're going to add one here to Pacific Street. And we've got a capacity of 1,000, and we have courtyard sunrooms we can add back here, which increases student capacity by 250. So another nice additions. Like I said, we're probably gonna need more of these though. We also have a French college. Now I have checked this asset out before. It's just beautiful, streamlined design of the 1930s. So it kind of has, you know, a different design language than much of the older looking buildings, but it's just different in all the right ways. It looks fantastic, and I kind of want to add it alongside one of our main avenues here because it's really is a substantial piece of architecture. I might even just add it here actually. I think I'm gonna do that. And it is beautiful, just like everything in this pack. A 1,000 student capacity, and we can add a rooftop leisure area. Doesn't that look nice? We'll just get that added. We're spending so much. Well, I mean, technically we're not spending any money. We have infinite money. But I think it's good we have unlocked all, and money isn't an issue because I'd be bankrupt by now. So I'm pretty happy with how we've laid out many of these service buildings. They kind of help create this foundation of a city. But obviously we need to do a lot of expansions to the road layout so that we can get to the next big milestone, so to speak, which is going to be the zoning, because that's what's going to really reveal a ton of additional French themed buildings from this region pack. Right before we jump into that time-lapse though, I am going to use the road builder to create a custom version of the pedestrian street. This is the regular one, and it's nice. We're gonna utilize this in a few places, but I think we need a narrow version as well. So we'll just call it that, and then I think we're just gonna get rid of these car lanes on either side. That should almost cut the, you know, the width of it in half. Not quite, but it's gonna make it a little more usable through some of these small French pedestrian streets we're intending to make. But now we're pretty much set up to throw on some music, map out some recreational areas, some parks, and just in general really expanding the road layout. Alright guys, I think we've got ourselves an inner city road layout at least. It doesn't quite extend to the suburbs that are gonna surround the city, but those really aren't the emphasis of this video, as we don't have low density themes within this region pack. But we do have quite a few zoning types, so it's going to be so much fun getting all this zoned up. Now, just a little disclaimer, since I did go for a couple of custom roads built with the road builder mod, and I tried to opt for a little more interesting of a design where we kind of break the grid at times, and we also just have some funky random roads to ensure that we don't have this super strict grid. There are some like zoning issues that are going to be visible when we start zoning this up, because these aren't perfect gridded zones. So yeah, you can already imagine that when we start zoning up some of this wobbly stuff, as well as down here, we may get some funny results. But we'll see what we can do about that, do a few small fixes, maybe just adding in some trees is gonna be enough for it to look all right, at least from like a macro perspective. But let's just dig into the zoning. We're gonna start with this area and the area over here, because I don't know if it's visible, but I've tried to kind of arrange the zoning here so that we can utilize the medium density row housing theme. That's right, we've got some row housing. Actually, let's just go through all the different zoning types here. So we have some row housing and they look awesome. You'll get to see them in just a second. Then we have medium density housing, just as you would expect, at least from a very like Parisian type French city. We have some mixed housing, which is basically the medium density apartments, but with stores at the lowest floor. But as far as I can see from the testing I've done, all of these assets are unique. So it's not just the medium density apartments with stores at the lowest level. They're actually uniquely different. But you can intermix them without it looking out of place in any way, which is perfect. And then we have a dedicated low rent housing theme, which is of a more modernist style. So it's probably post Second World War, but it looks fantastic as well. It's very distinctive. And last but not least, we actually have a high density office style as well. Now this is really nice, because it means that if you're trying to build an actual functional city and you start having a pretty high office demand as your city becomes more educated, you don't have to opt for the modernist or slightly brutalist architecture of the vanilla office assets, and you don't have to move into, you know, building skyscraper districts. You can actually, you know, just have old, beautiful French architecture that have office capacity. So this is just perfect. Anyways, enough rambling. We're going to move into the, where was it? The medium density row housing. So let's just start over here, because I'm pretty sure I can just paint this like this. And I'm intending for this to be like a major park and recreational area, so we won't zone anything within this road layout. Then we'll move over here. We'll get this zoned up as well. And I think for these blocks, I probably have to zone these subsections first, so that I don't get row houses that are 6 tiles deep. I would rather just have row houses facing either lane that are 3 tiles deep, but we'll see. And then right before I hit play, one important thing, I've grabbed the super fast building and leveling mod, and I guess it's kind of implied in the name what this does. I'm not gonna enable super fast leveling because I kind of want to see the different stages of the new assets here. But we are gonna use super fast building, so as soon as we hit play, things are gonna start popping off quite literally. But enough talking. We're gonna speed it up to speed 3 and see what happens. Now, obviously, these areas are still quite barren. There is no detailing whatsoever, and we haven't even planted any trees. But with that said, what an awesome addition to the base game this is. Fantastic looking row houses, and if we move over here, it's the very same thing. There's a pretty decent variety. Remember, most of these are probably level 1s, because there's really no reason for them to be leveled up and upgraded just yet. But I mean, just see we move from this really small, narrow one to some of these that are quite more substantial, and it's just amazing. There's enough variety here to keep it interesting. And yeah, I mean, this is a good start, but it also did remind me that I had actually kind of designated this up here to be a small row house district as well. So let's just make sure that we get these 2 blocks filled in at the very least, probably this section as well, and then we'll move into some more medium density here. Now we're gonna do the big sweep across the remaining inner city areas, and I think, how do we go about this? I think my approach is going to be grabbing the medium density housing. I'm just gonna pause the game, and then I'm going to paint out all of the inner city in medium density housing. And then afterwards we'll grab the mixed use, and we're going to strategically try and add that to places where it would realistically make the most sense. So if we kind of think of this area here between the train station, the old church, and the dual hospital as being like the very center of town, then what we probably want here is a few more of these pedestrianized areas, and then lots of mixed use. And then we'll have mixed use kind of follow the main streets here, where there's a lot of pedestrian activity and traffic and a lot of vehicle traffic, as well as the main street moving this way and this way. And then as we start to get closer to like the outskirts of the inner city area, so to say, that sounds kind of like an oxymoron, we'll slowly kind of tune down the amount of mixed use so that it's more just apartments without any commercial establishments. It's gonna be the same out here and up here. Yeah, I hope that plan makes sense. It's all in an attempt to try and zone as cleverly as we can. So, you know, since we have dedicated ourselves to zoning here and not manually placing everything, which would take forever, and we would never reach this scale, at least within a single video, I think this is the approach we're gonna be taking. So, as I said, we're painting out all of this in medium density at first, and we can already kind of see some of the issues we'll get up here, like visually, but as I said, we'll have to just see if we can kind of work it out and get it fixed. And let's just see, we'll move up to about here at very least, and we'll get these odd blocks fixed as well. And I guess I want to kind of keep this like for an open square, maybe even this in front of the church as well would be fitting, but we'll see. I guess the good thing about zoning is that it doesn't feel as painful to, you know, de-zone and remove some buildings if you want to do something else. And I kind of think this is it. We also, of course, need to fit in some of the office zoning, obviously. But I kind of wonder whether maybe row housing would be a better fit up here. Oh, actually, I planned for, that's another thing, I planned for like a little workshop here for maybe some of the trains. I might add some train props here so that we have a small dedicated rail yard. So I'm probably just gonna hold off zoning this area for now at least. I need to figure out something about this small peninsula as well. I don't want to just add apartment buildings. Anyways, we have a pretty good base now, and we're ready to sprinkle in the French-themed mixed housing. So the highest density near the train station, and then alongside the major roads and avenues. So right before we let all this develop so we can get in with some fixes, we're just going to be placing a French-themed crematorium. This pack has everything, including a crematorium, no less. So we'll just place that at like a small side street, maybe actually just about here. It's wall to wall. It's quite decent looking, so I'm thinking that it's going to fit quite in with the rest of the development. We have a single additional cold storage upgrade. Slightly morbid as always, but we want to apply that so that it's as efficient as possible. And now we're just gonna hit play and see how things are going to unfold. I'm pretty excited about this. Alright, so I think in like the macro perspective from afar, it looks quite alright for something that is entirely zoned without any tweaks yet. But there are definitely a couple of areas where it's, yeah, I'm paying the price for insisting on using some custom roads with the road builder, because it just seems to make, you know, making sure that the zoning acts like you want a little harder. So where I would assume these tiles would be facing Walnut Lane, it turns out they don't, which is why nothing is growing here. And I have a couple of instances of this throughout, especially this segment here, where I've used a handful of different custom roads. Oh well. We can do some more advanced tweaks with the pavement path to try and kind of break up the zoning and make it look a little better. But there are a couple of places where I think a very simple approach might just make things a little better. So if you have a situation like this where we have one lot here that is being taken up by a, what I assume to be a 2x4, it's 2x5, we should hopefully be able to move in with a different zoning type, rezone this part, delete this, and yeah, as we hit play, we'll get a split there so that we have a, you know, a complete row of houses here facing the waterfront. So that's like a small tweak we can do in a few places, but not too many places. The general issue here definitely is that the zoning here is completely messed up. And I think we have another situation like this on both of these streets here, although I don't completely trust myself currently, so I'm not sure if things are actually gonna spawn here. Okay, that actually worked out, and we have another one right next door, which can also be turned to 2. So there are a few places where I can add these. So I have tried to kind of salvage this by simplifying the road layout a little bit and then adding in these paths here, but we're definitely gonna have to place a lot of trees for this to look better. And I mean, it is a bit awkward. I really wanted a more unique road layout, but as soon as you just mess with the strictest grid possible, you're gonna run into some issues. Oh well, I kind of want to change a thing or two here anyways, because I think the density is a little too high since we are far away from the center. So I'm probably going to mix in a bit of row housing here so that we have a mix, so that we go from dedicated row housing, a mix between medium density and row housing, and then to strictly medium density here at the very center. But speaking of this being the very center, we are going to turn a large part of Pacific Street into a pedestrian area as well, because we kind of need that. We don't need like a huge pedestrian area, but I think if we do this segment, and this segment at the very least, and we probably need to do this one as well, we'll just use the regular one instead of the custom one I created. I don't think there's much need for it since the width is just fine. And I think that's gonna be about it. And I think that's all right. So I can add in some props here, some tables and stuff, so that there's a little more outdoor seating for some of the restaurants that are hopefully going to move in here. And then for the other part out here, we wanted to mix in some of this medium density row housing in hopes of just trying to make it look a little less dense. So I am just going to, this one is beautiful, so I won't touch that, but we can split this one into two. We can certainly split this house into two, and we'll just be moving back and forth trying to get this fixed up. I wonder if this will actually, okay, that actually worked, so that's great. So yeah, it definitely made it a little harder than it had to be, but I've done the tweaks I want for now, and honestly I think it looks just alright. We have a garbage piling up issue, which makes a lot of sense given that we don't have any facilities to actually handle this. So let's move into recycling here and maybe grab a small recycling center or something like this. I'm not sure why I have two of each asset. My game is probably balked, but we're gonna get this placed somewhere where I feel it makes sense. As you guys recall, I did do a bit of extra work out here on the road layout for this industrial area, precisely so that we did have some space in place to actually get some of this placed down. Let's just see, do we have, I think we have connection to everything, otherwise it is going to complain, but it isn't. So we should get some, yeah. Just things are going fantastic. Let's just get a power line moving underneath here, as well as some water. Yeah, great. Well, it works now at least, and we've got our garbage trucks out ready to do some collecting. Now we do have parks as well as signature buildings to add before we start moving a little more beyond the inner city areas. But before I do any of that, I actually just want to cover this with like trees and bushes. I'd rather just cover everything and then we can clear some of it up when we need to place some signature buildings, some cool facilities, some parks. I'd rather do it that way because I'm gonna be able to cover up a bunch of my imperfections if I add in a ton of trees and a ton of bushes. So we're just gonna go for maximum brush size, 100% in the strength. And let's see, the map primarily uses pine and spruce, and then I think we have some hickory up here as well as some smaller trees. So we'll say pine, spruce, and let's see, can we find the hickory? Is that because that's part of the US theme? I think it is. So spruce, pine, hickory, and I guess we'll grab the London plane as well. Then we'll zoom out and we're just gonna give a nice thick layer. Yes, the oldest trick in the City Skylines 2 playbook. Let's move on to adding in a few of these parks. So we can start this area here because it's almost a square, so hopefully it's a little easier. We'll go for large parks, and we have this multi-purpose park that we got with the detailers patch, and I didn't plan for this, but it's pretty much a perfect fit. So I think we're just gonna, I need to enable anarchy for some reason to place it, but we'll just place that right here in the very center. And then we're going to utilize the basic vanilla paths to just connect to the existing paths here and just move a few straight segments out, and then we'll probably add in some curvy bits as well just to make it look a little more interesting. So I'm starting from about 2 zoning tiles in, just dragging it out some additional paths here. We'll do the very same on this side. Yoink. And then we'll keep things simple, so we're just gonna enable continuous tool mode here and just create some different paths here so that you can take a nice little walk. Although before I create too many paths, I should probably consider whether I need to place in a few additional things. We could add in a community pool in this part of town actually. Or maybe we should do that in the other park. We've got a lot of open space to work with over here. So let's see, maybe a basketball court, or do I need that somewhere a little more central, like in a real inner city area? I guess we could actually maybe add a skate park out here instead then. You could skate with a view of the ocean. That would be a surprising way of prioritizing by the local politicians, but let's be full of surprises then, and I'll just kind of frame this with a path. Oh, we'll go for a straight segment so that it looks a little more well integrated. We'll get this segment connected up. And I don't think we're gonna add any more actual park or sports facility structures here, because I kind of just do want the paths, the curvy paths, to just kind of be, you know, the main attraction. You go for a walk here and there's basically just a ton of trees. And then I think I'm actually going to remove the grass surface within the park, just so that it all kind of looks the same. I don't want it to be like super well manicured. It's gonna blend in with the rest of the, like if we were to turn this into a little walkway, like a recreational area, then it's going to blend in a little better with the park now that it all has the same surface, which is basically just the grass surface of the map theme. For the major park up here, let's once again go for the large park assets to see what kind of vanilla stuff we can fit in here. And we have a large city park as well as a large plaza. So I might actually just try to add in the plaza here, and then we'll see if we can also add in the city park and make it all look like it's decently well connected. So we'll add the plaza, which admittedly looks a little out of place if I just place it like that. But then if we add this park right over here, we once again move in with better bulldozer to get rid of these grass textures here, just to kind of make it blend in a little better. And this one might even have, this one has fencing surrounding it for whatever reason. We're gonna get rid of that. I don't think that's the case on this one, but I'll get rid of all these trees, all these as well. They're like perfectly placed, which isn't really what I want. I want it to kind of fit in with the type of parks we're building here, which are really, you know, they're quite wild. They really allow for lots of plants and trees to just grow like crazy. And we'll just create some of these paths. I think here we might try to do something interesting. Get this curve on and then try and find the center and just make like a straight line all the way up to this road here. And we were considering the community pool actually, so let's get rid of a few of these paths and see if we might be able to squeeze this in and make it look reasonable as well wherever we get to place it. So if we just place it right here, do we need actual dedicated parking? Maybe like a small parking lot next to it, just like that. And then of course we need to use our pathway to just kind of integrate it. So we're just gonna go for no snapping. Then we'll just bring a path all the way alongside the edge of this and enable snapping, get it connected up to this park. If I can, that, yeah, that looked a lot maybe. No snapping it is. That gives me better control anyways. And as with the other major park, we're just going to reduce the density of trees just a little bit like this, and then we'll grab the oaks and kind of move in with these big trees alongside the major paths that got through the park, as well as within some of these vanilla parks, to like remove that last look of, yeah, being like an actual vanilla park that's placed, and make it look like it's just a part of the rest of this place. That was really hard for me to convey. I hope it made some sort of sense. And of course, once again, as with the rest of the mantra behind this build, it's really when you look from afar that it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, when you get up close, it's easy to see that there hasn't been too much detailing done and that we have some vanilla assets in play here. But I think, you know, in the macro sense, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the layout of either parks now. So to make the city a little more unique and special and break a little away from the traditional French architecture that still dominates it, I think we need two types of new districts. So I kind of want to turn this empty space here into like a redeveloped district. We can imagine there was some sort of inner city industry here before. So we'll have some some modern buildings of different types. And then up here near this main avenue in this empty space, I think we'll have some pretty modern offices. Very, very close to the train station for easy transportation, and just a bit outside of the downtown core so that they don't interrupt like the general aesthetic of this area. I have a pretty simple idea for this office park. I don't know how great it's gonna look, but I'm gonna try it out at least. We need some sort of surface parking here, so I'm grabbing this long parking lot, and then I'm going to try and kind of connect it so that it looks like it's connected to either side. And that actually looks all right, I guess. And then I am going to use Find It to grab the offices I actually want, because I want medium density offices. And this is like a custom theme I've downloaded from the PDX mods. So basically these are the high density commercial assets, but repurposed to medium density offices instead, because I want to provide more office jobs. I don't really know why, because I don't really have the demand. It just, yeah, we're just gonna do it anyways, I guess. So I'll be grabbing those that look the most modern. They are probably to be found within the European style, but we'll see. Something like this, for instance, although this one is a little too big and it has too much of like an open plaza in front of it. This one, however, is a pretty perfect fit. So let's just get that squeezed into this corner area here, yank, and then we'll find buildings that kind of match that style. Next up, we're gonna grab better bulldozer and just get rid of all the signs. I guess we may have to remove them again as soon as a tenant actually moves in, but we'll see. And it's not like it's gonna take a long time. Then we'll grab the pathways once more and just try to once again use them to bring this whole area a little more together. We've added in a few more paths, added in some very carefully placed oak trees, and then we've just used the recolor mod to just brighten up the buildings a little bit. And once again, very, very little detail, but you know, from a distance it looks like a small modern office park. We need some industry out here, and realistically I don't think we'd have heavy, you know, very polluting manufacturing industry this close to you know, medium density areas or just populated residential areas in general. So I think I'm just going to zone industrial, and then what we're going to do is we are going to remove the chimneys, and obviously as the buildings upgrade, you know, they may get chimneys again, but that's okay. We can just remove it once more. We are determined to keep the chimneys out of this inner city, or at least you know, pretty centrally located industrial area. So what I'm just doing first is just adding in some parking lots. Very, very simple stuff, but that's just going to break up the industrial development ever so slightly and make the area a little more interesting. And I may also just do some, you know, thoughtful zoning where I don't just zone out everything, so that there's a bit of space in between these developments where, you know, there's room for trees and bushes and whatnot. That is going to make this area just a little nicer than just, you know, downright zoning everything. So we already have a handful of development here, and we'll just be adding some more stuff. Let's go hunt for some chimneys with the better bulldozer mod. We've got these. This one. All of them have to go. And that's pretty good. So to make this area even better, at least from like an urban planning perspective, we can plant a ton of trees as well. And this is probably where it gets a little unrealistic and more like my ideal version of an industrial district where every inch of free space would be planted with trees. Maybe you would even force some free space in between each lot to ensure you get a few additional trees in there. Maybe that's just like my ideal vision of an industrial area, but I do think it looks pretty good from afar. Once again, new chimney, goodbye. I also think we need a rail yard, and we may as well place it out here near the other industrial stuff. And I have downloaded some custom rail depots so that I don't have to utilize the massive depot available in the vanilla game, which is pretty nice. So we could place this wherever we want, and we can just like build some industry around it to make it fit really well. But I think I'll just be placing it here, and then we'll just grab let's see, we'll just grab this basic road here, maybe upgrade this segment, and then just go for a straight segment right in front of the new depot. And then obviously we need to connect up the tracks. Pretty simple stuff. Six trains available, which I guess should allow us to get all this connected up now. So we need to create a passenger railway line from one of the station platforms to this outside connection. Complete that line, and then we've got another segment here. And we have one more outside connection. So let's just get that placed so that we can actually see some trains in action here. And I guess this is also going to aid in the development of the city, at least in bringing in more people from the neighboring cities. Actually, scratch that. I had some issues with loading the custom rail yards. So as you guys can see, I've just chosen to implement the full-sized vanilla one. I guess if we add in this maintenance hall, it looks a little nicer, but I think it's okay. I mean, the city is quite sizable, so we can probably manage with the big vanilla one. I think we're gonna do a bit of expansion to the industrial quarter out here, and then we are going to jump into building a medieval fort. Yeah, this is an asset that I've been wanting to use for quite a while, but I haven't really had a series or like a city where it felt all that appropriate. But now is very much the time. And I don't know if you noticed, but I did create this little raised peninsula here at the end of the island, and I'm thinking that might be a good spot for this medieval fort. But as I said right before we do that, I am just going to lay out a very basic road layout here so that we can get a bit of industrial stuff going. And zoning wise, I'm going to try and do sort of what I've done with the other industrial areas out here, which is basically that I add in a few parking lots at random throughout the place, and then we just kind of zone while maintaining a bit of distance in between the stuff we zone. This is an approach where, you know, hopefully we could get an area that looks all right without having too much detailing spent on it. So we've got our basic road layout, we've got a few parking lots in place, and then we are going to quote-unquote carefully paint where we want industrial stuff to be, and then we're going to add trees in between. And as I mentioned before, it might not be like the most realistic approach, but I really like how it looks from afar, especially when we remove the chimneys. And obviously by having some distance between how we zone, we're able to spread out the same amount of jobs onto a larger area, and it just makes the industrial area look much more significant from afar, which is very much what we're trying to achieve here, since we're focusing so much on scale. A lot of talking though. Let's just make sure this is developed and that I remove the chimneys that will spawn here. We'll just do a little checkup over here, remove some of the new chimneys here. This is likely caused by these buildings leveling up, so that isn't bad. But it does mean that if you have Plot the Globals mod installed, you're probably better off just choosing the industrial units you want, making sure they can't level up, and then you can remove the chimneys where you feel necessary. So in this case, we're just going to add a thick cover of these evergreen pines and spruces that dominate so much of this region here. And yeah, I'm just gonna go for a large brush size and really get a good cover in between the industrial stuff here. And then what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna grab the single tree here with Anarchy on and just place a few within the vicinity of this rail yard. I never quite understood why the rail yard, why it has to be so large. You know, it has all these bushes and rock segments. So if you have a really industrial area where you want to maximize your space usage, then this rail yard just doesn't feel as efficient. But now that we've developed this, I hope it makes sense, you know, what I tried to convey here. You know, it's quite a large industrial area, and I think it looks very realistic from afar. Obviously, as you get closer, you can see that it's not all that detailed, but from afar, I mean, it almost rivals the size of our downtown, which I don't find all that unrealistic. These industrial areas are usually quite sprawling. Anyways, let's jump to this medieval fort. I'm sure this is gonna be a lot of fun. So, as I said, I haven't actually gotten to use this asset just yet. It's this medieval castle, sorry. But now is certainly the time. And oh man, look, it has a really big footprint. So the same complaints I just had with the rail yard, I could kind of give for the medieval castle, I guess. But I mean, I think I'm just gonna place it and then see how that works. And it doesn't work all that well. You know, it's one thing that it has such a large footprint, but it also conforms the terrain, which makes placing it on top of this hill really tricky, because we are now forced to making the hill quite big. Yeah, it's a real annoyance. I think I'm at least gonna get rid of all these trees and bushes, and then maybe we should just keep the hedge in place because we can't terraform this anyways. So how do we actually solve this? Well, I guess one idea would be to just artificially, or not artificially, but to just be to just kind of expand the footprint a bit further actually, and then just try and make it a little more random, because it seems a little weird to have a medieval castle where they have, you know, you've built such a perfectly rectangular placement for it, like a plateau basically. But maybe if we actually, that's not random enough. I apologize. We're gonna add in a bit more randomness because I don't really think that cuts it. We're gonna need a little more out here in terms of randomness to kind of sell this, I guess. But I think we're getting a little closer now. Now it actually looks like a natural feature that they chose to build a castle on way back in medieval times. We need to feed in some traffic here, and I think we're just gonna go for the basic alley. I think that would be quite fitting for this area, and we need to cover up the small adjacent graveyard as well. And let's see how this, okay, we could add a connection here, but then we certainly need something a little more substantial over here as well. And we've got some hilly terrain, so let's just try and move. That is all right, I guess. Not perfect, just all right. Let's add in, at the very least, some bushes. And then I imagine that they might have cleared out much of the trees, or maybe this peninsula, this hill is a little more rocky in nature. So it didn't have that many trees to begin with. But I think we'll just add in some oaks. And not that that is necessarily super realistic, but I like oaks. You guys know this. No surprises. And I actually think that looks pretty good. We've got the medieval castle, the old city center, as well as the impressive church in the background, and then the hills or small mountains as you move further inland. We'll add in these random boulders for good measure, since there are already a few of them included within the actual lot. So we'll just get these added, and I gotta be careful because sometimes they can kind of look like they're floating in midair, depending on the angle that you place them. And then for the rocks, these are quite small, so we're just gonna go spam these up. We've chosen the random one to get as much randomness as possible, obviously. These aren't really all that visible from afar. As you guys can see, they're just like small white specks on the screen currently. But if you zoom in a bit, it becomes, the whole area just becomes a little more rugged. By the way, guys, I know I'm asking this a little late. We're probably way beyond an hour into this very long video, but do you actually prefer this type of building where we like focus more on the scale of things and the macro things, or would you have loved it to be more or less detailed? I would really love some, like, I don't know if it's feedback, because ultimately, of course, I need to do things I find fun as well. But I would be very interested in hearing what you actually prefer as far as like building styles. And something I'd like to do is actually just create a few districts to kind of give me an idea of just how many people I can expect, how many workplaces I can expect in these different areas that we are creating. Because as you guys can probably see, the population count is very, very slowly creeping upwards. And that's because while the mod I'm using allows the buildings to instantly spawn, it doesn't mean that they are instantly populated. So we'll find that most of these buildings are actually currently empty. They're just on the market, they're ready for people to move in and businesses to set up shop here, but they're not actually populated just yet. But if I turn it into a district, and we'll just call this one Avant-Claire, I guess, we can get sort of an idea of the population we might see down the line, because we can see the actual total amount of households here, which is, you know, it's 5 times higher than the current population we're seeing. So I guess we can expect at least 10,000, maybe even 15,000 people to live in the city core. And I kind of just want to do the same for this industrial area up here. I really don't have a clever name for it, but I just want to map it out so that I can try and track like what we have going on in the city here. Because while I kind of built after an aesthetic vision, I also do want to try and kind of balance things out. You know, I want to make sure that there are enough jobs for the people here, and an abundance of jobs as well, so people are more inclined to move in and all that good stuff. Anyways, we will be looking at, you know, more than 800 jobs here, which I guess is quite nice. Let's build some public housing. And I did have a bit of space out here reserved for it, so I think we're just gonna try that out. Now, it's just another cool thing with this pack that we have a, low rent housing zoning type as well for the French region pack. But in this case, it's gonna be too much trouble messing with the zoning here with the 2 roads and whatnot. So what I'm actually just gonna do is use find it in combination with the plop the growables mod to manually place these low rent housing units. So let's see if we go for, will these be considered high density? They were. Oh, they are. Okay, so we've got a bunch of stuff here. The reason I want to place them manually is also that, you know, public housing is usually pre-planned and placed in a certain way. And these look fantastic. They have their very, very own design, but they are, you know, general enough to be able to fit in several different cities, not just French-themed cities. I'm gonna go for some of the lower levels because as we move on to like level 5, they actually become quite nice. And it's not that I don't want nice things in the city. I just want it to be more obvious that this is low rent housing. This is public housing for people that have a harder time affording other, you know, places to live in the city. We have a couple of different versions. I really like this 4x5. I think it's going to fit in pretty well in this area, and then we'll just leave a space of 2 zoning tiles in between each unit. Can we squeeze in one more? I do not think we can. And then we have this version here, which is a 2x4, and I kind of want to use that out here. I just want to make sure, yeah. In this case, I'm going to disable snapping, and then I want to kind of place them at an angle. A bit of an angle at least. And then I want to move them slightly back, and I'll just kind of eyeball this and try to maintain sort of the same distance between each of these buildings. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be strictly perfect, I guess. And we'll add a bit of an angle to the last one here, which is, I need to be a little closer to the road. There we go. Which actually has, I mean, these actually have pretty nice views. I know there's maybe a bit too much forest stuff right now, which we're gonna clean up. But otherwise, really not a bad location, which I think is fine. We have to remember that at least in Europe, probably in the US as well, most public housing was actually built with really good intentions originally. Now, the fact that some of them have become, you know, hotbeds of crime and stuff like that is obviously like very unfortunate, but they were initially built with good intentions, and they were quite popular when they were built post World War II, because compared to the old cramped inner city apartments, they were quite spacious, and they usually had lots of green space in between. So yeah, if you were just slightly interested in the history of public housing in the Western world at least, there you go. And if you weren't, then I'm sorry, I took you hostage there. But I find it quite interesting at least. So what we're gonna do to kind of mimic the good intentions here is to make sure that we have some of these pathways that kind of cut through and enable you to take a nice walk through the area, but we're not gonna overdo it. I kind of like that it's quite wooded basically. But maybe we should upgrade a segment of this street to one that has just a little more parking. Now, scouting for an option, we could use the version I've used in here. Let's just see if I can grab that and seamlessly upgrade this. Not seamlessly, I'm gonna have to disable snapping at the very least, but then maybe, and can I sort of flip it so that we have parking on the outside? I can. Can I bring it all the way up here? Can we do the entire segment and still have space? I think we might just be able to. Yeah, I think that's all right. That does add, that should add quite a bit more parking out here actually. We might do a dedicated parking lot as well now that we're at it. We have this small new one with the detailers patch that I am still very happy to use. We'll just move that real close to the path here, get that placed, and there you have it. And we actually have this open spot here, which I'm still quite unsure what to do with. So I think maybe temporarily, oh yikes, I'll add in some public housing-ish development here. But this time I'm just going to use like from the regular European theme, just to kind of mix it up. So I think I'll just be placing 3 of these towers in succession close to the train station, and we'll just go for this slightly boring color scheme here for all 3 of them. And I think that looks pretty realistic, and that the location is pretty realistic as well. I think we're gonna continue with the residential theme, but lower the density quite a bit, and maybe try our first low density suburb, because we do need like a ring of low density to kind of surround Montclair, so that it looks and feels like a proper city. Now, these aren't as important to like showcasing the French pack, because you don't have a low density theme available to you, so it's just going to be low density European housing. So some of it I'm probably gonna time lapse, but I think I'm just gonna build one in like real time to kind of talk a bit into like maybe the ideas behind it and whatnot. So I kind of want to transition pretty quickly from medium density to low density as soon as we leave the main island here. That may or may not be as realistic, but there needs to be like some boundary to, you know, the expanse of the city. Otherwise, we're never gonna get done in this episode, at least. So what I'm going to do is we're gonna have some low density businesses out here. I'm going to add in some parking lots in between as well, and it's gonna be low detailing as well. That's quite important. I don't want to go too heavy on any of the detailing out here, because this is like a sprawling area that we're gonna need quite a few of these to really make the city look good from afar. So some of these will obviously have parking built in, some of these commercial establishments that we'll see grow out here. But I kind of just like to add in a few parking lots of my own. And this was all North American, but I think that's fine. I mean, low density sprawl is more or less low density sprawl throughout much of the world. So by using both zoning tiles, the only difference is I will have a higher variety of buildings, which is kind of what I want. And then I think I might try and make like a custom alley for the low density roads that we're going to build our suburbs from. So we'll just add a straight road here to this roundabout. Then we'll grab the road builder mod. And the only change I want to add here is parking on either side. Yank. Suburban alley. Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's fine. That's fine with me. And then we will need to grab this suburban alley if I can. There you have it. If I could find it. And then I just want to map out these small suburban areas. And just as I did with the industrial stuff down here, I'm going to really just spread it out and not make it super dense at all. There'll be plenty of space in between the houses and whatnot. And I mean, that's pretty much just so that I can make this area big, so that it's really spread out. It doesn't need to have a high density of people at all. That's really not the point. Can I add an additional to this roundabout without it being too complex? I think I can. And yeah, just gonna map out a quick road layout, and then I'll showcase you guys the zoning in just a minute. We've got our basic road layout. Once again, as far as realism goes, it would probably be like a bit of a denser road layout, so to speak, now that we're this close to the inner city. I mean, this is like the first layer of low density that we see as we leave the inner city. But yeah, I mean, I think for the purpose of what we're trying to build here, it's gonna be just fine. And I really do enjoy having just building cities where there are so many wooden areas and there are so many forests, because I'm from Denmark, where we've pretty much annihilated 95% of all our forests, and Danes seems to hate trees, especially in suburban areas. So this is my coping mechanism, basically. So you'll just have to endure. I'm very sorry. We'll go for some... the tricky one is that the low-density waterfront housing might fit better for a French theme, but it might fit better for like the southern half of France, because some of these have this very Mediterranean look. But maybe we should just mix it up. I might just do a bit of everything, really, and then we'll just see how it looks. My plan is basically just to pretty much zone all the open tiles, and then I will move in and I'll be removing some spots at different places to just add in a little more space for trees in between the homes. But I'll zone out everything at first, and then I'll remove it. I think that is going to be my best approach here. And another little, I guess you could call it zoning tip. You guys that watch my content regularly know I always do this, but I try to avoid zoning these very, very small lots because the houses that tend to spawn here, they're just going to kind of look out of place next to a 2x6, for instance. So I kind of try to avoid these, and then I'll just kind of fill in the space with trees instead, so that it's a bit like an open area, kind of giving a bit of a break in the development. Yeah, I like that approach a bit better. We're moving real close to the train tracks here, so I think I'm just gonna add a key wall to this side here, just key that off completely, because then I think we're gonna have less terraforming issues when these houses start to grow. I'm gonna disable super fast building and then just rely on having an artificial 100% demand for housing, and then we'll see if that affects how many people actually move in. I'm not sure it makes a difference, but let's just hit play and see how this all pans out. So I can already conclude now that I do want to switch out some of the waterfront housing for regular European low density zoning, and I think I'm just gonna use the houses with this like awful gravel effect as my guideline for what I'm going to be rezoning. Yeah, a bit, I want to say it's a bit annoying, but then on the other hand, actually I'm just gonna be a little more rough about this process, and we'll just click on every other lot, I guess. One thing you could argue is that maybe I shouldn't care about this stuff, and you would probably be right, but yeah. I hope some of you appreciate this attention to detailing, even though it is taking a little extra time. So this should get rid of a sizable amount of waterfront housing, so that we have a little more variety. Speaking of variety, I have these are hotels, right? Yeah. So the recent patch should fix the hotel issue, and for those of you that don't know, the hotel issue was that your city would never actually get any hotels. But it seems like now I'm getting too many hotels. But then again, this is like the first batch of low density commercial I'm even zoning. So, I mean, it makes sense, I guess. But if hotels are such an issue, maybe we should just place some high density ones ourselves to kind of take up the burden of all that demand. And I guess we could, I mean, we did talk about making this like a redeveloped area, so this could be like a small skyscraper district in our little city here. I say small because I don't want it to be like too crazy, but these hotels here, the ones with high capacity at least, they are quite tall and not necessarily pretty, but I mean, it can work, right? So if I just place one of these, and then we have this one, which isn't pretty either, but it's not too big or too bulky. Maybe there's a bit of space actually right here on this greatly sized awkward lot. Then we have a bit of a bigger one here, which we can squeeze in here. I'm just gonna try a few things out right now because I don't really have, I need to see if this will actually work with the like remainder of the city, right? Because while technically these are all hotels, this is more so just kind of like the business district. It's kind of a very, very, very small version of La Défense in Paris. So we also need some of these, I think we need some of these smaller buildings as well. And we'll just add, can I add a couple of these so that it looks like a, yeah, I can at very least add two. Nah, I think these two are probably just a little too bulky, a little too tall. But this leaves a bit of room to add in some more sensible high-rise developments, a bit of residential as well. So I'll just get a few different type of buildings placed. We'll add two of these towers, which I think is pretty good fit. And maybe I'll add one of these, which is going to be the tallest building of the city, basically. yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. So I'll just add that right here. Then we'll move into some offices, and we're gonna need some medium density in this case to avoid having any more towers. We'll go for a 4x4. Just want something that looks relatively modern. I'll remove all the signage, of course, you guys know that. We'll add this one. And then I think this one is a really good fit. So I think that looks pretty good for like a modern skyscraper development. I think it was good that we just kind of tuned down the biggest buildings there, because they were starting to look like they looked really big in relation to the remaining of the city, right? But I think this looks quite all right, and I imagine this is something that could be approved by the city council as far as new developments. I'll add in a surface parking lot, because sometimes developers are just insane. So we'll get that place there. That's a decent little fit. And could I actually utilize this one as well? Or is that gonna be too much? That's probably just gonna be a bit too much. Actually, I just kind of want to add it, and it's not too bad. That's perfect. Perfect surface parking. Not sure that's a thing, but we're going with it. And we're certainly getting closer and closer to having an actual city here, and maybe even adding a bit of extra detailing. But before we get to that, we seriously need some more suburban sprawl. Functionally, it's gonna add commuters, more people, more foundation for business development, but obviously we also just need it visually to be able to actually have a proper city. So let's jump into a time lapse. Now that we have created one small piece of suburban sprawl, it should be fairly easy to just follow this formula and create a good thick layer of it all around the city. All right, so this is turning into a complete marathon, and we're approaching 30,000 people here. So I think it's about time I call it. I don't think it makes sense to do like a ton of extra detailing. Maybe just a little bit, but let's take a little tour of what we've built. So as we zoom out, we have the layer of suburban development that I wanted, and something that really helped with the population jump as well was just adding a ton of additional jobs. Although I fear that we need many more. Yeah, the unemployment rate isn't looking great. But as we move across here, I added a small industrial and commercial area. We have some public housing here, and we've got more schools as well because, you know, suddenly the pressure on the education system was really big. And then we've got lots of suburban sprawl out here. Now this was really quick to create. Well, I guess there's so much of it that it wasn't all that quick, but pretty low detail, quickly made. And then a few industrial sites as well. So this island here is pretty much all industrial, and I got the chance to use a couple of signature buildings as well. A bit of commercial here, and another big school, and some more suburbs, and a small office park way out here, just quickly put together. But this kind of reminds me, now that I mentioned signature buildings, that we do have these French themed signature buildings that I still haven't placed. And we definitely, I mean, we should use these before the the city is quote unquote finished. This one is pretty huge, this signature office building. So I mean, I guess that should kind of flank one of the main avenues. Should it be right in front of the church though? It's a really big building, so I'm actually having a bit of trouble trying to kind of fit this in with the existing developments, I would say. Maybe on this corner here, right in front of the train station. Maybe both corners actually. Let's actually just try this. If I can just, we're gonna give this a go. I'll get rid of this transformer station-ish building. I don't remember the name of it. And then we'll place it on this corner. We'll move over here and we'll place another instance of it. Actually, let me just kind of clear up this stuff here. We'll get that placed again. Can I align these so it looks all right? It's a little rough. If I try to just remove this one, yeah, that's probably better. So let's just get it in place on its own, and then I think we're going to need some proper level 5 buildings here. And I guess this does allow us to actually have a look at how these mixed-use buildings look when they're level 5. I'm sure we have a couple of level 5s now throughout the city, given the fact that I can see that a ton of stuff has been leveling up while we've been playing. Oh, actually, we have another signature building, so we're obviously gonna place that here. And then go for 2. We'll grab a non-corner version. Beautiful. We'll get that placed, and then we'll go for 3 and another beauty. These buildings are just fantastic. Let's just see how the residential medium. Wow, look at that. Stunning building. So I kind of just want to place parts of this block manually because I want it to be really dense now that we have this massive building placed. I'm looking for something that's dense and tall, and just adding that there also helps a little bit. And I had another look, and I mean, look at this level 5 residential building. Fantastic. And we've got one more here. Oof, beautiful. So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna like spice up a few things here. Actually, we should probably call it now. I think we've managed to squeeze in this massive, beautiful, modern office building quite well with the existing surroundings here, which was the main goal. All right, so we have the office building taken care of, and I'm not gonna try to pronounce that. And then we get to place one of the mixed use as well. We've got an additional mixed use. This one I will pronounce Café de Paris. I hope that is correct. I felt kind of confident at least. And we'll try to get this one placed as well. This is a huge building, so somewhere alongside the main avenue here, and we need the block to be kind of big because it doesn't have windows on its backside, so the block needs to be bigger than the building, and we only have we have very few blocks that are actually this big. This one here being one of them. Does it have? It doesn't have windows on the side, on either side. All right, so this makes it, I guess, a little easier for us to place it. I'm gonna try and just remove these and see if I can squeeze it in. Yeah, no, it's gonna cause some issues, but that's okay. We'll see if some of this will regrow. These will, and then I'll just manually see if I can place a couple of buildings back here. Non-corner buildings preferably. And let's see if I can just grab, sorry, we'll go buildings and then we'll go for a depth of 2 just. And non-corner versions, if there are any non-corner versions that are just too deep, there are. We've got these residential, and it looks like I can actually squeeze these in, so that's perfect. Yuck. We also have a beautiful signature building in the residential category, and I'm kind of tempted to see if I can give these some waterfront views. We've got a pretty low level corner here that I am replacing, and let's see if that's it. Actually, there's also a cabaret music hall located in the 9th arrondissement of Paris. Oh man, this is actually, this is a huge asset. How am I gonna place that? Well, I do have a few blocks here that are very, very deep and quite wide. So, I mean, if I just pause and get rid of this pathway, then maybe I can actually squeeze it in here. Let's just look at the, oh, that is a beautiful, beautiful front. Man, this pack is just next level. And then things should go row here, and I don't need to make sure these are all level 5. This isn't the tallest building, so I think that's gonna work just fine. Maybe I should just get rid of a few trees here. But other than that, this is also a nice addition. And since it's such a sizable building, just like the office building up here, it also adds a lot of character as we zoom out. Guys, we are reaching the very end here, but I do feel we need to do just a tiny bit of detailing of the long pedestrianized street here in the very heart of downtown. And hopefully, since we have these new prop menus, it's going to be a little easier because we have very easy access to the table sets here, which is like one of the quickest ways of just adding a bit of detailing. So we are just going to add these randomly throughout, where we have some shop windows, and of course much of this is mixed use development, so there are plenty of shop windows everywhere. So we'll just be adding a few. We'll make sure this pub here has a place where you can sit outside and get hammered. This restaurant as well needs a few tables. We've got another table set here we can add outside of this establishment. So just really low detailing, but I'm hopeful that it's going to add a lot of character, just making sure that we have a bit of outdoor seating at least. That's it. No more detailing, no more trees, no more surfaces, not one single extra table. Detailing here is going to be my demise because I already have so much footage to try and record into. I guess this is gonna be a 2-hour video by now. That is it. We're gonna keep to the big scale things, the plan we originally set up to do, and let's just stop it here and be happy with what we've got. So thank you guys so much for watching to the very end. It is certainly gonna be a long video by now. I hope you learned something. I hope you are as excited about this pack as I am. And of course, equally excited for the remaining 7 packs we'll be getting in the next... I don't know the official release dates, but I imagine that within the next half a year or maybe even sooner, we will have most of these packs in our hands, which is just fantastic. So great times ahead for Cities Skylines 2. This has been an incredibly fun build, but also a real marathon. So it's going to be very joyful for me to wrap up with some final cinematics. I'm going to do my best to capture the scale of the city and some of the nicer areas as well. Once again, thank you so much for the support and for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.